It's a bit of some sort. And why I make this point to people who are coming from different areas is that if you want to know something, you can really come into knowing that. Second, economics I found very unique. I thought I was going to do mathematics, but just couldn't find my space there. And I thought I was going to do chemistry. I thought that I'm going to get stuck in a lab or something. But then I found economics is something that everybody understands. And but not when I say not everybody understands, everybody practices. But nobody understands. This is the idea of the whole thing. We are all practicing economists, but when it comes to discussing economics, we are very shy. Well, partly the lecturers themselves are responsible for it, because we have made it look so abstract, so obscure, and as a result, people can't find a connection. It's like when somebody talks about love in a very high-fashioned way, and you miss out the whole thing. Is something you just express in a very simple, subtle way. But economics is also something like that. So feel free that economics is something we all know in practice. The reason that we find hard to understand, in fact, this is something I have been thinking a few days ago. I teach mathematics in the university, and I teach economics. When I was sitting with my son, he was doing A-levels, I was doing physics with him, I was doing mechanics with him, and I was just trying to figure out, economics looks so simple to the guys who talk, but pretty weird to people outside. The reason being, if you go to sciences, you always build up, and it's a cumulative. You go to Newtonian mechanics, you go to Einstein mechanics, you go to quantum physics, you keep on building it. You can always revisit these things in a very logical fashion. So the construction is very clear. If you go to social sciences, it's pretty open area, open space. And you have very little theories as far as I know. And you just go about. But when it comes to economics, it's something, genuinely a bit of a very complex way. It's sciences the way it is being taught, but it is non-science the way it is being practiced. The problem is the guys like us who are supposedly talking economics to students create this abstract world and create a kind of a subject called economics to teach. So you must have done economics at some point in a different form, like you must have done demand curve, markets, prices, and you have a nice looking downward sloping demand curve, those who have done some economics, and there is an upward looking supply curve, we say they match. They meet each other, and that's where the marriage takes place, and the child is called price. So the price is always this kind of interaction between the two. The fundamental flaw in this whole thing, this bloody demand curve, doesn't quite exist in the real world. Even if it does exist, it exists in quite the opposite. Our assumption is, we ask a simple question, okay, you go to Gedra and want to buy apple. You look at the apple and you find apple prices have been slashed by 15%. You immediately haven't thought of, well, you might think of 1 or 2 apples, but you go for 5 or 6 apples. So the instinct is the price goes down, then the demand for that particular commodity goes up. So it's a nice, but the point is, when you try to put it into a formula, when you try to put it into a consistent argument, you ask a simple question, okay, if the price goes to 0, what do? Do you buy as much apples as possible, or you get some No, it doesn't work that. And also we know that there are so many things that now prices are not decided by the market. Who does makes the decision on the prices? They just fix the price. And you go there and buy it. Right? And the prices, and how do they fix the prices upward all the time? I remember when Food City was showing Sanat Jayasuri holding a sausage and saying that this is where I get my energy. Right? So I told the boss, do you think people will believe this? But that's the way it goes. We don't believe, but it's psychologically, people go out. So you advertise a hell of a lot. So what you basically have is a demand curve which is not downward sloping, but everything is going up. And how you create that upward movement is by creating various other things, psychologically bombarding you with all kinds of bullshit. And at the end of the day, you don't know why the hell you bought these things. I mean, it has happened to many of us many times. Right? So, I'm not going to ridicule the economics as a subject, but you must bear in mind it's not the gospel. It's not the kind of stuff that people talk as, oh, that's the way economical thinking should work. I think, but the common sense has much more relevant nonsense. In the same way, so that's what we call microeconomics. Microeconomics, you just look at individual behavior, you just look at firms, all that. So this is economics, something that came about in 1900s. We call it neoclassical. The guy who invented economics or discovered economics is called Adam Smith. We call him father of economics. I don't think there's a mother, probably, but it was a single parent issue. And so this economics came about in 1700s. And he would basically talk about competition and all that in a broader sense. But he said something very important. He said economics is driven by self-interest. Now, the minute you put the self-interest into economics, it's immoral, right? In a society, if people are driven by self-interest, then the society has a situation of utterly chaotic behavior. Kind of, the kind of stuff you find in the jungle. But then he said, no, that is true, but at the same time, when everybody wants to compete on something, he used the word competition, then it gives us some sort of a balance. This is also true in a sense. Now, when you go to a place where we go to the, when we were small, we go to the village, there's only one kade, and that kade guy basically decides the prices. And you have no choice. So it's a monopoly. But then, if there are ways and means of creating more and more others in that area, then the monopoly gradually diminishes. So therefore, self-interest, though was the driving force, it will have a much broader force that will act upon it, and so that eventually it will benefit both parties in the same way. So this is nicely, but the actual fact of life is that's not the way the world behaves now. Big guys always have the biggest share. If you take the consumer market in Sri Lanka, Unilevers are the leaders, and they basically call shots. Nobody else just follows. And do they discuss with us as to what the price they're going to do? No. Once they have got the monopoly. And this is what everybody does. Same with Apple. Apple is the largest company in the world now. It has just become the first 1 trillion value company. First 1 trillion value company. But Apple is just doing something similar to everybody else does. They have created that fact, and that has given them a tremendous advantage. So like that, there are many. But our discussion today is not about that. So we are looking at another kind of thing, economics, which is much more realistic, much closer to our hearts, and much more understandable, at least we believe that there is something that we can understand, which is called macroeconomics. Macroeconomics, principle of macroeconomics, the discussion, why it is relevant to guys like you? Why does it matter? Why does it matter? As I see it, macroeconomics is the entire machine, the entire wheel of economy. No. Macroeconomic believes in this, the whole thing is a conveyor belt. It goes round and round and round and round, and is driven by various players. There are producers, there are consumers. In the producer category, you guys are coming in, I am coming in, I am a producer of service, you guys are producers of certain technological services, right? So they come in, and the more you work in that, the flow becomes either bigger or smaller. The better the input you put, the flow will become better. That's what has happened to South Korea. South Korea, 1990s, 1965, was given Sri Lanka. In fact, I remember when we were very small, I think school age, people used to say, that's like a Korean. You're referring to something very, very below the standard. Right? So it's the kind of impression people have. But some of you must have gone to Korea, and it's absolutely the opposite. And not only that, Korea being such a small country has not deprived them or prevented them going and brushing shoulders with Apple. The only other company that has been challenging Apple is Samsung. Of course, now China has come with their own Huawei. It's the massive one. China is entirely different ballgame. We're talking about 1.4 billion people in a market. That gives you enough and enough of scale. Whereas South Korea is a small country, very small. For it to get into that world, it had been able to create this innovation, businesses, very productive attitudes. So we are part of that. The trouble we have in our country, when we were 1940s, we were the vision of Asia or the hope of Asia. But we are still the hope of Asia. And everybody is hoping that the hope will realize at some point. So we had many cooks coming with various kinds of agenda, the latest being the Japan agenda. And from the word go, they kind of overtook the Japan, and now they don't know how to digest it. They have indigestion. So as a result, the whole economy has. But then, how do we know? What are we talking about? These people say, look, things are not moving, and things are bad. You talk to a three-wheeler guy, he will say, home the business. And I can answer. He didn't so I think we so something has gone wrong. Something has gone wrong. But if you talk to the Prime Minister, he will say, look, 1 million jobs are going to be created in the next 6 months or 8 months. So people are hoping and waiting. Anyway, so this is a broader picture. This broader picture has facts, two elements. One is, if you take the microeconomics, business economics, or the economics that Adam Smith has been talking, which was later interpreted by many other people, they said demand is irrelevant. What matters is supply. So therefore there's something called supply leads to its own demand. That means whatever you produce, you make the market function, and the market eventually get the business going. So that means nowhere in a situation where economies are having excess supply, people are not being able to sell goods, people are in a nice environment. How does it work? It's a price based. Let's say we have too much of rice. What happens? Price goes down. So people start eating more rice, or you might be able to sell rice to Maldives, some other country. So eventually it clears up. So those who had the supply had the money, they will invest it, and then this cycle goes. There's no way market fails. So this was the presumption, and this was the belief, and this was the faith all capitalists had. But then there were two people who went against it. One was Karl Marx. He said this system has a huge imbalance because on the one side, Adam Smith said 4 factors of production. Just let me make a very quick entry into that. Every production can be put into 4 baskets. One is natural resources. Second is man-made resources, we call capital. Natural resources, we call land. Then third is humans, people have to be in that process. Fourth is the guy who put these things together. We call it businessman, or in French, we call it entrepreneur. So there's an entrepreneurship. Now, what Adam Smith said was, okay, each of these guys are getting rewarded. How? Guys who are working will get wages. Guys who are giving land and other stuff, we call it rent. Not exactly rent, but let's call it rent. Then the ones who are providing machinery. Here, the machinery word is slightly modified. We call it capital. The assumption is, when you are buying a machine, you get a bank or somebody to finance. You don't basically put your cash up front and buy a machine. You don't put our cash into buying a house, even if you have the cash. What do? You borrow. So therefore, capital is related to interest rates. Then after paying all that, you are left with the lecture, the two-done lecture. We call it profit. Okay. What Adam Smith says was everybody is driven by profit. So it's not a two-term profit. The one who is getting two-term income is only one person. Who is that person? The workers. Right? Because they don't have the power to demand a return. Everybody else has power. Land people has a power. If they are, when you look at land people, they are land and businesses are one and the same. Then the financiers are banks, they are also in the same. So basically what Karl Marx said is, okay, these 3 guys are the same. There's only one guy who is different. Who is that guy? Workers. You see, there's a huge imbalance between workers and the rest. And it's numbers wise, workers are the largest, but payment wise, workers are the least. And this is not going to work for long. At some point, these workers are going to topple the system and take it over. That's called revolution. So that's one. So it happened in certain places, but it didn't sort of succeed in a big way. And then it had its own problems in Russia. But then things came like dictatorships and all that. So anyway, that's one. So it's Karl Marxian system did not succeed. In the 1930s, something else happened. The so-called bad markets suddenly found rattled, but unable to get out of their hibernation. They're sleeping. Markets are sleeping. Meaning, people are having goods, prices are coming down. What did we say? If the prices come down, people buy more, the markets get cleared. So the system goes. The bloody system is not working. Markets are not letting to clear, despite the fact prices have come down. Then only this guy, John Maynard Keynes, he said, hey, wait here. There's something else that is missing here. Market is incapable of getting out of a crisis. So someone else has to come in. Because someone else, he said, government has to come. So now you have 2 dimensions. All this time it was 1 dimension. The market drives everything. Now you have two dimensions, but the two dimensions, you have to have a government coming in. Now this was not to the liking of many people, but at the same time, people had no choices. People who believed in markets had to accept, okay, something else has to be done. So that is why macroeconomics came into being, and he said something very simple. He said, look, if you take a country, you can say expenditure, in economics we call it demand, aggregate demand, supply or GDP, we call it aggregate supply. He said, it is quite possible aggregate demand and aggregate supply is in an equilibrium. Oh, sorry. You guys all heard me, no? Okay. Equilibrium, but the level that it stops is bad for people. Why? There are thousands of people jobless. They're just there. They got thrown out of the market system. They just can't get employed. It is fundamental for every human being to get employed. That's the only way they can earn. If you don't earn, you don't get food. If you don't have earnings, you don't have housing. If you don't earn, you can't think of future. So earnings are fundamental. So because of that, we call another economic term called employment is very important. Okay? So employment coming to the picture. Keynes said, look, that bloody thing and used to regenerate the economy. Is it fantastic? He said, look, when businesses have goods not being sold, prices have come down. But there's something else is also happening. If the goods are not sold, what happened to the company? The company doesn't want the workers. They throw the workers out of business. Now when the people don't have cash, now what happens? He can go to Gedaranagama and walk Gedaranagama, but not buying anything. Why? He doesn't have the cash. So this guy said, look, let's break that link. How do you break that link? Let's give them jobs. Yeah, no jobs. Let's create jobs. He said, okay, how do we do that? What we do is, let's get them to dig drills. For what? No, let's just find a reason. Where do you get the money from? We print money. Government can print money. So government prints money, give the workers now salaries, and those fellows are doing something utterly useless, never mind. But at the end of the day, they have this. What did they do? They go together and now they buy. Now suddenly the Nagama manager realizes, hey, stocks are getting depleted. He calls the suppliers and says, look, get on production. Now that guy now realizes, okay, he needs workers. He advertises, okay, we need workers. So the cycle. This is what we call business cycle discussion. Business cycles is the fundamental basis for microeconomics. What Keynes said was, economies are going in cycles. They go up, meaning everything is going good, people are investing, businesses are prospering. When it is going down, businesses are slowing down, extra capacity, no investments, jobs are going. So because of that, the government role came into play. Now our discussion today has these two thoughts. One is understanding the macroeconomy, and second, understanding how the government gets plugged into the whole system, and then some kind of knowledge in the marriage between the two. Now, this is a 2-hour class, so it's extremely tight when we have to look at. So I'm not going to go into the details. That's me. Okay, that's, you know that guy. He's the guy who's running the show these days. and he's the economic wizard of the country, and he's the prime minister, and he has something called economic policy statement. Of course, they had several policy statements in the past. Okay, what does it mean? It means it tells how the government engages itself with the economy. Now, we need to understand two things: how do we understand the economy, and how does the government engage in this, and the overall picture. This is the basic material they have. They talk about economic foundation, economic strength, competitiveness, social market economy, blah blah blah. Now, don't bother trying to absorb these things. These are all political stuff, right? Now, these are the more downward stuff: jobs, income levels, rural economies, land ownership, basically then the middle class. These are some of the stuff, but this is not the entire stuff. You can make a whole book of different materials that are relevant. If you talk to someone in the north, his issues are job opportunity, his issues are income levels. There is a huge extent of poverty there. Their issues are rural economic issues. They have to live in the rural economies and at the same time make a living, substantial income basis and a sustainable basis. And land ownership is not a serious issue. Of course, it's a political issue. But then on the other hand, if you come to the urban areas where there are so many people who don't have houses, who are basically on various other means of living. Then middle class is an urban issue. So these are some of the things. Then you come to even more specific stuff. These are, as you can see, from a very functional point of view. You have exports. One of the major problems we have in this country. We have not been able to export. Until 1930s, we were one of the largest exporters in the world in terms of the size of the economy. Our economy is about 90% of economic income came from exports. Now, those who have got very rich recently, including the South Korean economy, they ventured into exports. Now, the most successful exporter nowadays is China. You go to any supermarket and find you want to buy something made in China. Made in China. Is it only here? Go to any other country. Go to New Zealand. Go to a supermarket in New Zealand. I went there and I just looked at, I want to buy it. Everything has come from China. Why? China is such an aggressive exporter. And it, being a poor country 25 years, 30 years ago, now is almost knocking the US from the top notch. So it is that kind of question. Then the issues in the case of exports is something. Then there is something called trade deficit. We'll have to work out what the hell is that. Now that is, in a very simple terms, you export and you import. If you have a difference, and if the difference is in favor of imports, that's what Donald Trump is really worried about. He's basically attacking everyone on the issue. Look, America is the richest economy, but we are having deficit with everybody. I mean, everybody else is living on American economy. That's why he's going after China, he's going after EU, he's going after various other countries on the same. Okay. Then we have the income taxes and taxes stuff. Then there are issues of, I know a lot of us are paying a lot of tax now. Huh? That is because Samarabida and everybody and the ministry thinks that we are not paying taxes, therefore these guys must be made to pay taxes. And they say that government does not have cash because the guys who are supposed to be paying taxes are not paying taxes. Okay. they are trying to do something about it. Okay, now I come to the more specific thing about government and the market. Now, this is at a conceptual level. Governments have a specific role to play in the economy. I start from the last one, stabilization. Now, that's what I've been talking about when 1930s and 40s, global system was under recession, meaning unemployment was very high, prices were going up, and that's a very bad recipe for any country to be as a decent for a decent country. Okay. So government has a role to stabilize it. When it goes like that, bring it to a stable spot. That's what stabilization. Then second or third one is very easy to understand. Government is the one that passes laws. Government is the one that passes various other, because the market system does not have all the facilities and all the principles established. Because they are basically driven by profit motive. If you don't have a government, you will end up seeing some bloody factory next to your house, which is a very residential area. So government had to put a label or principles and say, look, these are residential, therefore it's not possible. Now there's a big controversy about this national park in Vilpattur. There was a clearance of Vilpattur for housing. On the one side, housing is the need of the people. On the other side of it, parks are very important for the ecosystem and for the entire country. So government had to make a decision with regard to how these things should be balanced. Distributory role, meaning, now this is something that government market does not take into account at all. I told you, when workers don't have enough salary, what do? They strike. And if they are trade unionized, they have the power. They can basically, like the engine drivers, suddenly they decide, okay, we're going home. They went home, everybody else can go home. Right? So that's a part of it. Doctors at the same time, but the same thing, and you guys, engineers, also do the same thing and say, look, we are going to switch off all the electricity circuits and blah blah blah, and then that's your power. But basically, even that to be implemented, government very often intervenes. The allocative role has, a distributor role has even more issues, like now the present government talks about investment to villages, like this new thing. What are they talking about? What they're talking about is creating income enhancing capacities in the rural sector. Markets don't respond to that. In Jaffna and Batticolo and other parts of the country, there is so much of unemployment. So in order to get people to support them, government has to provide various assistance. Housing, dairy farming, all that. That's called a distributor role. And how does the government get the distributor role going? They tax the rich, distribute to the employees. And then there's a broader thing called welfare economy, welfare of the country as far as people are concerned, and we are one of the highest welfare countries in the world. But probably we are one of the very few who have free education up to the university. No country provides that. And we are supposedly having free health. We are supposedly having subsidized transportation. We are supposedly having subsidized electricity. So these are all part of a distribution role. Then at the top is allocative. Allocative role is, this is where government had worked very closely with the market. Allocating means where do you put your investments? Where do you create highways in order to create more businesses? So resource allocation can be triggered by the government through government intervention, either by direct intervention or indirect intervention. What is indirect intervention? indirect intervention is now recently they said, okay, now vehicles have to have Euro 4 standards for the fuel. Now, it immediately creates ruffles in the market because now the market had to respond to it. But the government says, okay, we are more concerned about the environmental pollution and therefore we will do that. So, allocated risk role can be used in a number of different ways. If you remember, Mr. Harkandasan had what called village-based government practice, 250 government practice, 200 government practice. Now, what is that? That again is an allocated role where government pushes private investors to go to the regions. And this is even happening now in a more clustered way. So there are Kilinochi, there are Kobala, all that places have that. So this is, I'm giving you a sort of a test of what the governments do. Now, in order to get these things going, governments have a number of different mechanisms. These are fairly large. Most important and most interfering is fiscal policy. Fiscal policy is the one that government does to interfere directly with the system. Individuals, markets, investors. They can raise taxes, they can create, they can levy, CBR landed with VAT and that stuff, right? So which basically is fiscal policy, and government decides to give various kind of budgetary supports, budgetary incentives. They're all coming through the government. Okay? Those who are in the government would know that the budget is the one that dictates what an institution can do and cannot do and when they should do. So it's a very specific money allocating mechanism, and on top of that, it has serious implications on the economy itself. Then there is monetary policy. This is not government, but it's a de facto government influence. It works through the central bank. Now that is something to do with not the government expenditure or government revenue or anything else. It's about the financial markets, banks, how much of interest rates should be charged, how much of cost of credit, things like reserve ratio. Reserve ratio is government, central bank says, look, if you have 100 million deposits, you can only give up for lending 90 million. So that means you have to keep how much? 10 million. Out of 100 million, 10 million you're keeping means you're keeping that as a reserve. Okay? So that then. Now what does that mean? That means banks have to find profits by lending only 90. Whereas bank had to pay interest on 100. So bank's cost goes up if you increase the reserve ratio, and central bank does it for various purposes. Then there is industrial policy, meaning government decides, now see present government industrial policy seem to be talking about exports, promoting exports, at least they're talking. Then also they are talking about environmental sustainability. Whereas if you look at the previous government, Indrajith Aponsu regime, they were more talking about infrastructure. They were more talking about connectivity. They are more talking about regional developments. Okay, so industrial policy can take different shapes. Then there is trade policies. The controversies we have about Singaporean free trade agreement, that's all about trade policy. Now, trade policy is basically how do you deal with things at the customs, at the point of the port? Does it matter? It matters a hell of a lot, because based on the trade policy, it can have various implications to the rest of the country, rest of the economy. When Singaporean trade policy was being so far formulated, now a lot of people said That's going to kill us. Industry design said that's going to kill us. So the implications are huge. But at the same time, trade policy can be used as a political gimmick. One of the headlines when the trade policy, trade industrial policy was discussed is that this is a gimmick by the government to bring the prices down. Right? When you have a free trade policy, you say we are not going to tax the imports. When you don't tax the imports, what happens? Imported goods are coming to the country and it's very cheap in the supermarkets. Nice, everybody is going to be very happy. What is so nice about it is now the guys who have been competing with those goods in the local economy have to close shops. They are the guys who are making a huge noise. But from the government's point of view, they might think, if this is the case, they might think what matters to us at this point of time is winning the election and making people happy is the best way forward. These are very short-sighted. That's, but there are other arguments for and against. It's not completely one-sided. Then there is exchange rate policy. We know exchange rate has been going up and down quite significantly recently. So that's another area. So basically, as I said, fiscal policy is called the mother of all policies because at the end of the day, governments have to present the budget, and the budget basically has a very direct impact on the everything else. Everything else. Okay. Now, let me just touch on a few policies. Fiscal policy is what is done through the budget. Fiscal policy has a very simple argument. Do you know what this is? GDP is the production of the country. GDP is what we have produced. What I'm doing is what I'm producing. You guys are not producing now. But if you're in your own workplace, you are producing. Okay, so if we put all those values here, GDP is this. Now, the other side of this is, what do we do with this? Now, why are you here? I'm sure you must have paid something to the institute, right? It's not coming free. So you're a consumer. So you have, the production is consumed by people, right? And some of the productions are done by businesses. And on top of that, government engages in buying and selling, expenditure. So we have government here. Out of the production, we sell garments to the rest of the world. Tea we sell to the rest of the world. We call it exports. So we do that. So whatever we produce is being eaten by Indians, Japanese, UK, by way of exports from us. But then what we eat is not exactly only what we have produced. Okay? So to make this balance, we have to add what we input. Okay, this side is called supply. This side is called expenditure. We use a different term, aggregate supply and aggregate demand. Okay. Now what happens is if you eat this, if you increase this side for some reason, it can drive this side to increase. Okay. That means if people start eating more and more, then that means the production will respond to that. It's a simple argument. If people invest more, again, so basically you can manipulate this by manipulating this side. Okay? You can manipulate this side by manipulating this. This is us a very simplistic way of looking. So I mean, if we get people to eat more, we find more businesses, we find businesses, and goods will help be produced. But there is something else can happen as a result of that as well. That is, I told you when we eat, it can either come from here or come from here. For some reason, if this increase goes to this, you are in deep trouble. You try to push your economy by doing various things, and then if that goes to imports, that means you are not helping your local producers. Whom are you helping? The foreigners. Even though you got 10,000 rupees, with the Yapal and you have 10,000 rupees, right? You're very happy. What did you do with that? A lot of Sri Lankan government servants, or cars, or turables. Right? In fact, if we look at that year's statistics, we find small car exports, imports have gone to 1,200%. Okay. So, what now? When the government increased their expenditure here, they inflated. They expected this to increase, but that didn't go. It leaked to here. Now we got into a hell of a mess. Okay. That's a fiscal policy, in a very politically driven fiscal policy. But it was lopsided because that did not boost the economy. And actually, it boosted imports and it contracted the economy. This is the irony of the present government. I consider maybe two mad things that decided their destiny. One was the 10,000, which they never had cash. They used the credit card to pay all of us 10,000. They got themselves with a liability of 12 billion extra every month. 12 billion rupees extra every month. So that means every year you added up to the government expenditure almost about 150 billion extra. And the salaries are something that has to be paid on the 15th of the month. The provincial council on the 20th of the month for this. So the treasury landed with the liability. That's a cash flow. But now what I'm trying to say is this mechanism is to be called fiscal policy, using fiscal policy to push the economy. And what the government can do is it can spend its own, or it can give some incentives for people to spend, or it can give incentives for investors to spend, or it can give promotion to exports. And if all that goes to this, then it's good. But that kind of action is called expansionary fiscal policy. Expansionary fiscal policy is you expand that side. If you do it directly, that is giving people cash, like it happened in 2015, or indirectly, like the government is now trying to do. They are trying to give people to invest. Supposedly, they are trying to give people to create more businesses. Okay. So expansionary fiscal policy. How do they do that? That's the way. So you understand what is called expansionary fiscal policy. And why do you want to do expansionary fiscal policy when the economy is down, not doing very well? Then you try to inject some cash into the system and it will expand. On the other hand, and how they can do that? They can either do it directly, increase government spending, that G, by various ways. They can undertake. In the last government, what they did was they had an expansion fiscal policy, but their expansion fiscal policy was directed at, among other things, at least infrastructure. That infrastructure promoted investments. that infrastructure promotion and investment. But there are other issues coming along with that's a different issue. That is a simple Simon flow. So you can lower taxes. Now you will see some of these things are not possible. Why? If you lower taxes, that means your expenditure side is going to be completely missing. Then increase transfer payments. Now this is paying to poor. Now this is not so much an expansion, but it's a very much political reason and for distribution reason. I told you when people are poor, they have been helped. But in order to do that, government had to have cash. So lowering of taxes is right. Increasing transfer payments is also right. And boost GDP. Boost GDP is the ultimate thing with all these actions. They can do simultaneously reduce taxes in certain areas, give subsidies to certain people, and also increase government spending by various means so that the expenditure goes. But this is why, remember when we had the war, we still had something like 5.5% GDP growth. How did that happen? That is because government has increased its spending, and that spending was spent on forces, and the forces basically transfer their cash to their families, and it goes to rural economies, and the rural economies are benefiting out of that. So basically the economy was able to sustain a kind of 5%, 5.5%. So you can see this mechanism allows government to, even under very targeted conditions, to create economic growth. But on the other hand, that's not good enough. You need to have 7%, 8% economic growth. But in order to do that, you've got to make it right rather than doing in a haphazard way. So this scenario we can show in a diagram like this. I'm sure you guys are not very averse to diagrams. Now what you see is what we call this one. This diagram is taken this way. This is output, and this is prices. There's a simple Simon argument again. Countries' consumption and demand goes up when the prices are down. So you have a downward sloping curve. For the supply, when the prices are going up, suppliers produce more goods. So supply curve. So you have a situation AD curve and AS curve. And there is Q1 in this diagram refers to the GDP at that particular point. That is country's GDP is at that. Now the trouble is if that GDP is there, stable, but with a lot of unemployment, then you are not happy there. So you need to push that intersection point to a higher level. So what do? You boost the aggregate demand. How do you do that? You can create more consumption. This is aggregate demand, I told you. Consumption, investment, government expenditure, and exports. Exports, it's not your baby. It's in somebody else's hand. Right? One thing they can do, not like as this government did, they renegotiated for GST plus. So they were able to create some kind of impetus on exports. Not big, but some. Or they can promote investments. At the moment, the investors are pretty down. So it's a kind of a very slack area. Consumption is down. Why? Because people are taxed all across, VAT and everything. Yeah, so as a look at pricing power. So the only way they could do that is G. So let's forget about the present government. So any of these things are possible. Easiest is the G. Right? That means increase government expenditure. And when we do that, you can see your AD curve shifting to a higher level. Okay? So that means now your GDP level goes to Q1 to QP. Forget about the vertical line. That's an entirely different scenario. So as you could see here, pushing the AD curve outwards, you can create what we call boosting the demand. But there's a price. What's the price? Yeah, there's a downside. What's the downside? if you look at the vertical, horizontal lines, P1 is the level of inflation, P2 is the level of inflation, which is higher. P2 is higher. So that means, if you try to push the economy, you should expect prices are going to catch up as well. So you can't push it too hard. If you try to push it too hard, you can go quickly, and thereby, rather than having an expansion in output, you have an expansion in prices, which is extremely counterproductive. So, though it is technically possible on the graph, but in reality, there are many challenges as well. But from a conceptual point of view, you can understand that this is a possibility. And that's what the budgets are doing all the time. That is what Mangal Samaravi is trying to do in this budget. Before the economic, before the elections, they want to show that they have got better results, so they are trying to push the yield curve. They did try to do it in the previous round and got landed very badly, because rather than AD getting shifted that way, it went the other way because this expanded. Okay? Anyway. Right, so there is something called expansionary fiscal policy. Then at the same time, as the clock, the oscillation goes that way, it can go the other way around as well. And unfortunately for Sri Lanka, we never had a situation like that. The things are going too far, we're going to slow it down. But in other countries, China it had, India it had. When they guys were sort of growing very rapidly over a period of time, you suddenly realize, hey, slow it down. Things are not moving as fast as you go. So you've got to slow it down. So in order to slow down, again, government can intervene, raise taxes, reduce some of the expenses they give, take out some of the concessions they give, and thereby push the spending curve backwards. So these are some of the ways of doing that. Okay. So just the same way we spoke about earlier, you can push it backwards. So the signal that this is going too fast is when the prices are going too high, then you know that you've got to do something to slow it down. So that means when inflation is very high in an economy, economic growth is very nice, everybody loves it. If jobs are there, people are earning money, but then, I told you, when you try to push it too fast, the other side of the price is the price. If the prices are getting too out of control, then you can. So as a result, you will do what I call contractionary fiscal policies. The same words are used in different terminologies. In the first one, we call it stimulating packages. These are called austerity packages. Right? Now,
what does the M stand for?
What is?
The
M, imports. Supply now. Now this is important. If there is a demand for these things, and if it is produced locally, then that means it is going to create jobs in this country. But if demand for this is going up, but it is not produced locally, then we are not going to benefit. Of course, we get a pen, but somebody else will benefit in terms of incomes and jobs. Okay, right. So that's a little technicality of that. Then I come to I told you another one called monetary policy. The monetary policy is a set of policies which are working through the market. Government fiscal policy doesn't work through the market. How does it? Government decides, okay, we're going to increase so much of expenditure, we're going to have a massive expansion program. Now someone was telling me there's a massive construction program taking place in Colorado. I don't know. I'm not seeing myself. I was just we had a chat with a friend of mine, a neighbor. He had gone to he came from Belfast. He said, Machan, there is a big construction taking place. Maybe he had seen it after a long time, but that's a different issue. Now, that is nothing to do with the market. The government decides, okay, we're going to go to Colorado. But if it were for Mahindra Rajapaksa, it would have gone to Ambadar. If it were for, so for example, if it were for, say, Mangala Samaravi, where they call it from? Huh? Mataram. So, Mataram, they have got the benefit. Those are very, very ad hoc way of. But in monetary policy is not like that. You can't target, okay, humble to the people one way, deaf the people another way, everybody gets the same. See, it just works too. So the monetary policy is basically the interest rates, managing interest rates, and the credit, and exchange rate, money supply and growth. Well, forget about the money supply and growth. Then administer the financial sector and financial intermediaries. Last two are bit too heavy for us, but we do understand the first three. Interest rates. We know if the interest rates are brought down, what do you think will happen to investments? Increases. At least if you can assume that it's favorable for increase, and I will decide, okay, I'm going to have an expansion in my house, right? So low interest rates can attract more investment. But if you, at the same time, if you want to attract more investments, what the government will do is try to keep the interest rates low. Isn't that? If the government wants to have more investments, more consumption, what should they do? Keep the interest rates at a low level, right? Credit. Getting banks to give more credit. Now there is this particular issue at the moment. The present government is expanding some programs, and they are persuading banks to give credit to people. So expansion of credit is a way of making it. Then the third is managing exchange rate. Now this bloody thing is something they don't know what to do. Exchange rate is a policy that could be managed up to a certain point, but beyond a certain point, it is just anybody's case. And that's what has happened now. Up to a certain point. Let me just tell you what the we don't stop for a break, huh? Again, we can draw a simple diagram like this. Now, what this says is exchange rate is, let's say, dollars. This is the supply of dollars. It's the demand of dollars. For some reason, if the demand for dollars goes up, what happens? This line shifts. Okay? This line shifts, and then you have to expand your supply of dollars like this, and which has to come from somewhere. But of course, there's something else that's happening. Exchange rate shifts. Dollar becomes more expensive. Okay? Dollar becomes more expensive. So this can happen without any intervention in the system. Okay? Now, but on the other hand, central bank can decide, no, we're going to deliberately keep the exchange rate at a particular point of time, particular point of. This is during the last government, they try to keep the exchange rate stable at a particular point of time because they want to keep the inflation control. Because if the exchange rate depreciates, what happens? It leads to prices to go up. And when the exchange rate depreciates, it leads to your foreign debt to become more expensive. Okay? So, and also when the interest rate, exchange rate goes up, goes stable, then what happens is normally it doesn't affect the poor. So it is politically okay. The present government, on the other hand, didn't understand this very much, in my opinion, and they let things get drift. And as a result, they ended up in a situation where demand was rising very rapidly. Remember, we got 10,000 rupees. That 10,000 rupees started importing cars. Small car imports have gone, I told you, for 1,200%. And what do you do with the car? You bring the car, put in a nice little glass box, and wash it. You drive the bloody car. Then what happens? You import oil. Haha. It's most ironic when this government came into power towards the end of 2015, we got oil at $30 a barrel. In 2014, it was $130 a barrel. Okay? So, you are saving on every dollar something like, let's say $60, $70. If you save that, they're giving you a huge chunk of dollars as a saving. But that didn't happen. What happened? Because you built 10,000, then you bought cars, and cars started going around everywhere, and then there was traffic, so you spent more petrol on it, and your petrol bill went up, despite the fact that oil prices for petrol was low. So what I'm trying to tell you is that if you don't get things right, you end up with everything going wrong. So the exchange rate went up without any. Now then, so as you can see, when the exchange rate goes up, normally we try to depreciate the currency to discourage imports, to encourage exports. That's a policy decision. But in this particular case, it was not a policy decision. It was absolute mercy of the policymakers, and getting ended up totally landed without a solution up against the wall. So now what happens is, now you have your everything goes up, your debt stock goes up, your budget deficit goes up, your government, because government spends a lot of money on imports as much as, and most of the investors, whenever they import, they have to come at the imports. So these are all bad things. So as you could see here, the second thing that happened in this government was that the interest rates went up. Not because of a policy decision, because you got some crooks in the central bank. Okay? These are serious issues. Interest rate, when you raise the interest rate, it's bad for economy. It's bad for investments. And how did that go up? When the interest rates are coming down, you let it go up because you simply foolhardily did something. Now we are left with interest rate because it should have been around 9%, 10% on a downward cycle, it just went up like that. So the reason why economic growth is not taking place is not a surprise to anybody else. Okay, now I'm coming to Sri Lankan economy. Let me just see. Okay. Now that's why we are here. Why you guys are here wanting to know economics is because it affects us. It's directly influencing. It's not without examination. This is something that you got to have knowledge. So I invite all of you to think beyond this class. Pay attention to the little things. There's nothing complicated about economics. If you want to learn things in that simple. Don't believe in bullshit people like us, but just look at the basics. Just keep a track of very basic things, what is happening. And have an understanding when that happens, this is what is going to happen. Okay. So this is, I guess you can understand this thing. These are the glory of Sri Lanka, being Sri Lanka. Unfortunately, we don't know how to make use. We are in the most strategic position in Asia. We are an island, so we don't have people walking across like in Europe. We have sea 200 nautical miles around us for us to explore. And we are a multi-ethnic country that people could work together. And we have a literacy rate that's about over 92%. People understand. We are not India, we are not Bangladesh. Go to Bangladesh, you will see the ignorance of those people can be a huge problem. Sri Lanka is not that. India has given us ambulances, all right, but they have a serious problem of going to toilets. They don't have ambulances for it, and they have in the rural sector, the average distance they have to cover to get to a hospital is 100 kilometers. That's massive. How many kilometers do we go to get to a hospital? No, right? They didn't have toilets, so government put up toilets. People don't know that they have to go to the toilet. They go back to the lands and time. So then there is another kind of set of people go with bells and sort of chase away the fellows who are doing the job in the open area. Does it happen in Sri Lanka? No. That is literacy. People understand. It's a massive advantage, but you don't have. Anyway, these are some of the. So we have had many opportunities. We simply squandered these opportunities in style. So I guess we should get into the Guinness book how to mess things when things are so simple and so straightforward. You know how to make it an absolute mess. So these are some of the break points we had. We had different points. I don't want to go into the details, but you can just read it and see. Now this is the kind of equation of a country, any country. Now I'm just going into more general issues. Okay. So this is basically how a country goes from what it is to something in between and to the finality. Normally you have to have these things which are called primary inputs. Then you have in the process, say for example, you have to have a good banking system as a primary input. And having bank is not going to help unless the bank is dealing with millions of people. You have one of the best banking systems in the world when Suddhas were here. But that didn't mean that people in general could access the banks. The Sri Lankans never had any access to bank. So mobilization, so the intermediate scenario, and finally the output scenario. So this is a simple equation, right? And these are how they. At the end of the day, we want to have how fast economic growth, reduce unemployment, higher standard of living, social welfare, greater social welfare, economic strength, political stability. In order to get there, what you are here is growth in human capital. That's what you are doing here. Growth in human capital. You want to have more broad, holistic understanding of things beyond engineering. So there are other things as well. Then at the primary level, we got to have countries need to have productive capital. Now this is most ironic. Now if you go to South Korea, they didn't have productive capital. They never had productive capital. Most of the productive capital was acquired by the North Korea. South was kind of more sterile country. Same with Japan. What they did is they re-engineered to create something and something extraordinary. We had every extraordinary things. We know how to convert that to nothing. So we are going in the opposite direction. In the process, when as we are moving, this is our dashboard in the economy. In a country, driving the car, you have speed, it is the GDP growth, and you have a temperature meter, which is inflation. Then you have oil, which is the resource base. There are all kinds of meters you have just to tell you how the hell things are moving. So this is what this side is the dashboard, and that's what you are trying to get at: rising per capita, rising employment, rising incomes. So in doing so, you have to deal with, as we said, exchange rates, interest rates, inflation, income distribution. Now, for example, in 2001 to 2003, Mr. Ravindra Singh government was in power, and they had a policy of what we call regaining Sri Lanka. Now, the difference between that policy and other policies is that regaining Sri Lanka is a high growth policy. It could have made economic growth faster. It could have made businesses grow faster. But the downside of it is that could have created another insurgency in Sri
Why? Because fast economic growth is good one side, but it could have serious implications on income distribution. There can be more poor people and more income gaps, and that is a bombshell if you are talking about a country like Sri Lanka. US, if you go to US, income distributions are highly uneven. The super rich are getting richer, poor are getting poorer, and there are millions of people who are without homeless. But if you go to a country like Sweden, it's the opposite. They have distributed, they have led the economic growth grow rapidly, but at the same time, they have a culture where everybody comes along and pay huge taxes, and that creates income distribution even. So if they have a much equal and even societies, lower is another country. And so that economic policy is called social market economic policies. When this government came, their ideology, the ideology that they spelled out was social market economy. Something like you find in Germany, Sweden, Norway, and other countries. So the important thing is, on the one hand, it has to get the machine going. Second, as the machine goes, it has benefits, and the benefits must trickle down with you to grow. Get distributed to people. Whereas in the 2000-2003, the second part, they were talking about economic growth, but they were not talking about getting it fairly distributed. This is the idea of trying to go too much market. Market is good because it's efficient, but market is bad when it comes to overall people. Because it leaves out many people, and it squeezes out people's strength to make profits. Because profit is the direct. So it doesn't create no social harmony. We have had three insurrections, twice GDP, and LTT for another 30 years. These are all income distribution and basic rights. So we just can't afford income. I will skip this. These are some of the statistics you come. Now, when it comes to economics, macroeconomics, now this is not the concept part. This is now the more practical thing that we come across material in production, income. These are the different baskets of information. You get information about output. If you go to the central bank annual report, you have a section called output, employment, and income. Then you have prices and inflation. Then you have fiscal policy, budgetary policy. Then you have demand management or monetary policy. Then you have trade and industrial policy. Then you have balance payment, how we deal with the rest of the world. And then finally, where we stand in terms of international wealth and do we have huge debt, foreign debt? Do we have investments, large investments? How are we sort of faring ourselves in the rest of the world? Now, in the case of economic growth, you find these are some of the materials you have. Rate of economic growth, GDP. I can't go into the specific details of it. GDP is basically the value of output in terms of rupees or dollars. Okay, so it's a simple equation. If you get a country's output price into quantity, then you get GDP. Now, what is the price? Price of that year. Now, I is the commodity. Say, the last few weeks ago, you had the bumper harvest of mangoes. So when you went to supermarkets, especially city market, we used to buy. We ate mango very lavishly. Every time I go to the supermarket every 2 days, I buy about 6 kilos of mangoes, and we finish 3 kilos every day. Right? So, but mango prices have come down, they were mine. But then, so mango price into mango quantity is the output of mangoes and that particular year. Okay? So this we call nominal GDP. Now the mangoes have gone up in price. I was shocked. I just bought a mango today. Just 311 rupees just one mango. My wife said, okay, buy a mango for fruit salad. I bought the mango. I was so embarrassed. It was done. 311 rupees just one small mango. Right? Now, earlier I used to buy 3 mangoes for 300. So, now what has happened is 1 mango, 300 into 1 gives the same amount of GDP with 3 mangoes. So, you can have the GDP going up either due to quantity or price. But if you look at the price increase in the commodity, it doesn't make sense. Because it has not created output. Its price is an illusion. If I'm paying for 300 rupees, supermarket is getting 300 rupees. But it's just 1 mango. So it has not created additional employment. So therefore we got to take this bloody price thing out. Okay. So but you need a price. Then we say, okay, let's take one particular year's prices for all the years. Now we can have this. Now here, price effect is completely nullified. So you have several years, all are getting same P0 values for each year. Okay? It's only the quantity that reflects. This we call this is our GDP. So when we are talking about GDP, we always talk about GDP. Okay? And then that GDP we call this real growth. Then you can do this also, percentage change in GDP, nominal, we call it nominal growth. As you can see here, real growth is the real expansion in output. Nominal growth is both expansion in output and the expansion in. So there is a approximation here. We can say real growth plus price growth equals okay, so what it means is this: we have a nominal percentage of GDP growth, subtract the inflation at that time, you get a rough value for real growth. Right? Okay, so you can have a nominal growth pretty high because if the prices are going up without any real expansion in it. Okay, so having inflation will always create more nominal growth, but affect the real growth very much. Then there are other things you come across: GDP per capita, unemployment. Then there is something called rate of inflation, rate of domestic savings, national investments, structural economy, capital output. Now these are economic indicators that are some are very short term, some are very long term. Now take for example, if you look at the one before the last, change in the structure of the economy. That means what's the percentage of agriculture, what's the percentage of industry, what's the percentage of services. In Sri Lanka, it's roughly around 53%. I think industry is about 25%, 30%, and agriculture has gone down to 20%. But some 50 years ago, agriculture was something like 60-70%. Services were small, industry was even small. Okay. But if you go to a country like South Korea, they will probably have industry is something like 75%. Okay. China also has gone in that direction, despite the fact that they have a massive agriculture. Then there are other indicators we come across, what we call budget surplus deficit, revenue as percentage GDP, growth of public debt. These are the issues we deal with in real time. Now, if you look at, let me just go back quickly. Rate of growth. Anybody knows what the rate of growth of the economy in 2017? One of the lowest in some very early years. 3.1. And this was, we'll see that. So that means it really tells us a big story. Despite all the bullshit talk people make, it just tells you, look, figures don't stand up to your talk. Inflation, per capita GDP, there was a escalation, and the per capita GDP has, what is per capita GDP? GDP per capita is, if you take GDP as a cake, you divide by the population. It's something like, say, multiplication cutting the Sri Lankan GDP cake. Right? So each believes that each one can be given a piece. So that's called per capita. Okay. That per birthday cake GDP per capita, if it is not expanding rapidly, that means each one is getting the same size of piece over several years. So at the moment, Sri Lanka GDP per capita is hovering around 2,500 to 3,000, and they're talking about getting things at 5,000. That means we have a massively increased the GDP over the last few years, over the next few years. Then the rate of inflation is how the prices are going. Now, I told you prices can go up due to a number of reasons. There are short-term price increases. If there's a drought, if things are bad, you find vegetable prices, food prices. But then at the same time, if interest rates go up, it causes inflation. That's what happened. When the interest rates went up by 4 or 5% base points, that we were talking about. There's cost pressure on the economy, and the producers have to pass that cost to the consumers, so prices fall. Thirdly, exchange rate. When the exchange rate depreciates, you know it hit us very badly. Those who have been buying cars, you know that the prices have gone up very rapidly. Anything imported, now things have gone into a different cycle. Prices have gone up rapidly. Then prices can go up, exchange rate, and also when the economic growth goes down, the prices can go up. Why prices can go up? The supply contracts, even as a result, things can go up. So the inflation can come in many ways. Now, at the moment, the present government is guilty of these two. They raise interest rates, that led to the inflation. There is one more thing. Prices can go up due to another intervention by the government. Can someone tell me what that is? We all pay that. Anybody using now mobile phones? You reload people now complain. Now you put a reload of 100 and you end up getting only 50 or something. So that means basically your reload has got very expensive. So the prices have gone up. So that means VAT. These are all killers of people's income capacity. So inflation is people's capacity to buy things. In the broader sense, it's the prices. Then savings is in the GDP. Take the GDP. You eat GDP. You pay taxes. When you pay taxes, GDP, we call it disposable income. So, though we have the GDP, it's not available for us to consume. Why? Because the government has taken a large chunk of that and they have been pocket less. So, when that happens, now in that you have, this is the money in your pocket. Out of that you eat and you save. Okay? You eat and you save. So, in that saving is what we call domestic saving. Normally, in Sri Lanka, we are around 85% eating. So, we are saving out of the GDP about 15%. And Americans are worse. They save about 10%. Chinese are the best. They save about 35%, 40%. Massive. Asians are good savers, except China. So now the other side of the coin is, it is the savings that finance investments. It is the savings that finance investment. And it is the investment that creates GDP. So can you see the cycle? If you don't save enough, you don't have enough money to invest. When you don't have enough money to invest, that means it affects your capacity to produce. And if, on the other hand, if you want to increase more of the GDP, if you want to have more investments, what must you do? So going to China is an inevitable factor. There's no point saying we don't like Chinese. They are the only buyers who are willing to lend to us. British are not lending. EU is not lending. Give that sort of money. The money who can afford to give us is Chinese. That's the fact of it. Indians, of course, talk about it, but they also have their own problems. They don't have a lot of cash. Chinese are washed with cash. They have massive trades. They come here, so we say, no, we don't want you. So they go to, I was in 2016, I was in Dhaka. Same hotel, Chinese friend was there. That was the first time I had to jump over the barrier to get into the hotel with my full suit and bags and stuff. And because they have made it complete level bound for people, and I had to go there. Then I was on the 7th floor, he was on the 5th floor, and I read the news. He has given Bangladesh President, Prime Minister, $45 million. That should have come here. So 15%, and we want investments. If you want to have a GDP growth of about 7%, we want more investment. How much investments we need? We need about 30%. So you have 15%. Your problem of investment finance is 15% short. Of course, there is another irony which had helped us. That was not none of you guys, not engineers. Those guys who have gone to the Middle East, sending here something like $7.5 billion to $8 billion. That's a pure saving. That enhances our savings. I think it goes to about 22%. So it makes our shortfall much more reasonable. Imagine if that 8 billion is not forthcoming, then it's absolutely. Okay, so that's the story there. Then now this is another segment of the economy. What the government does, they are going to present the budget this time. It's quite possible that they will spend money or expenditure goes up. Because election rather gone. And then that is spending extra money. But of course, they have in the budget there are two sides. One is called revenue and expenditure. Now we had a serious problem with revenue. Now if you take revenue, now these are normally taken in terms of as a percentage of GDP. In the 1990s, we had a revenue of about 20% of GDP. 1990. In 2016, we have about 12% of GDP. Our expenditure has been way above the revenue. Of course, it has come down. With the war situation, it's a little bit come down. But we are running a deficit of something like about 6%. So that means government had to borrow heavily to run the show. So this is what makes it even more precarious. The government spends money for short-term purposes. So we're going to get into serious stuff once again, and it's going to happen soon. So deficit is 6%. Now expenditure has two elements. One we call current expenditure and capital expenditure. Current expenditure is paying salaries, running the war, paying various other pensions, tablets for kids, so these are all current expenditure, and normally these current expenditures keep the ball rolling, nothing new. Okay. Capital expenditure, on the other hand, is creating capital structure, putting on roads, putting on schools, new technology, new institutions, all that. Okay. So this is important. Now, when you try to reduce this, when you want to reduce this, you should be reducing this, not this. So what is happening here is we reduce the capital expenditure more often than the current expenditure. So this has been happening. We will see some of these statistics as we go along. Okay, now then I come to in that when you have a deficit, then what happens? You increase debt. You increase debt. Okay. So this is a serious issue. Why does debt is a serious issue? Debt is a serious issue when you find higher the debt, you have a expenditure coming here for what we call interest payments. Currently, interest payments are more than 25% of the total expenditure. So that's a your loan not repayment, just the paying of the interest is 25% of your total expenditure. That's a massive burden. So here again, this interest you can make it look better by managing interest. So unfortunately, this government really managed in the opposite way. They made the interest payment. I mean, you are borrowing from someone. You go and tell that budget, give me at a high interest rate. That's insane. That's what happened in the central bank issue. The bond issue is that you could have borrowed it at 9%, and you went and landed at 12.5%. For how long? 30 years. These are serious crimes of economics, which not a lot of us don't understand. And In the previous government, they were capable of lavish expenditures, and they were in a more post-war excitement. Of course, there were a lot of infrastructure, but then at the same time, there was a need to put things into some sort of manageable order, discipline. And here you get the guy who goes and hammers the central, who goes and hammers the Dalada Maligav Fintech. Central bank is the sacred place like Dalada Maligav for economics, and you got to hammer that. Anyway, so as a result, you find the debt is, of course, debt has its own implications as well. The ones that you created, the ones previously. So the present government complains the previous government has created a lot of debt, which is not very possibility. But it doesn't mean that they have behaved in a better way. They are even worse. If you had something, you should take responsibility. So this is totally insane if people say, no, this is not our problem. Debt. And the other problem of debt is, debt comes from two directions: local debt and the foreign debt. The local debt, the idea of local debt is to increase the cost structures very rapidly in the monetary sector. And in the case of foreign debt, I think this government could not borrow a lot, but I think they went on a certain time period as well. But the thing is that the whole system management was very poor. Then comes to what we call balance of payment. So all that you do in fiscal policy, debt, and everything ends up. Right? If you balance of payment is the dollars coming in and dollars going out. And when you have a net, as a net, it's a balance of payment deficit. Now this has various other subcomponents. Dollars coming in as what we call a trade balance. These are exports. And dollars going out, imports. The difference is called trade balance. And we have a huge negative trade balance. Huge negative trade balance. There's nothing you can do about it because these trade balances are extremely important. You have to import investment, you have to import oil, you have to import essential goods, you have to import weapons. There's nothing you can do. Exports, on the other hand, you can push for exports. As far as exports are concerned, the present government has been able to get some exports going. But irony is, although they have got some opportunities, they made a mess of the local economy. So the exporters find it hard to make competitive export production to compete with the rest of the world. So it's basically not being able to capture the opportunities that we create. So trade balance has been a major problem. Then on top of that, you have services. Again, services coming in and services going out. Then there is a third. This is also negative, hugely negative. Then there's a third section called transfers. This is the only one that has saved us. What are these transfers? Those remittances people make from the Middle East to here is an inward transfer, and whatever that we take out is an outward transfer. And we know if you are an engineer and you take your family, so you don't send the money here. Where you send your money? You send your money to a Singapore stock market or something, and you pay there. So who is sending money here? The housemates, the basic people. When I say engineers, I'm not talking about me being a different person. I use the same thing. We look for ways of enhancing our cash without having to send it here. Whereas those poor people I have to send them money. So basically, it's a very ironic situation. This is the only thing that's plus. When you add those things, we call current account. And current account balance is negative, but not as bad as trade balance. Why? Because you have a transfer balance which is positive. So which has subdued the impact of the current account balance, the trade balance. Okay. Then when you have a current account balance, like at home, you have a shortfall in cash. What do? You go to the bank and ask for a long-term personal loan. So that's what the government does, and we call it capital account. The borrowing account. The borrowing account can also have another element which is not a borrowing. We call it foreign direct investment. So the capital account is a borrowing account which can have borrowings and non-borrowings, which are called foreign direct investments. And if you have borrowings coming in, you can manage your capital account. If you have FDI coming in, you can. This is exactly what happened during Mahindra Rajapaksa regime. They were able to get a lot of borrowings without much of a hassle, and also they were able to get significant amounts of FDI. So as a result, your overall balance remains good. But on the other hand, if your borrowings are getting slowed down, or if your foreign direct investments are not forthcoming, so that means your current account is going to hit you full blown, and as a result, you have a shortfall of dollars. So this is what happened in the present shortfall of dollars as well. What happens at the end of the day? You have a balance called reserves. Reserves are the amount of money that you have, like your wife's gold chain, your wedding ring. Those are the reserves you have. You don't touch that here. But in the country, reserves are the central bank always keeps a certain amount of billions of dollars as a stock. This is called level of reserves. Normally, this is given as a indicator. You divide that by the number of import bill, monthly import bill, and then you get a figure 1, say to 10. If you have 10 months of imports covered, then you're bloody healthy, absolutely fantastic. But on the other hand, if you fall to around 3, you are in for disaster. Anything less than 3 is you're a bad guy. People don't let you. The minute it falls down, so reserves coming down is a serious problem. This is precisely what happened. When the reserves are coming down, the IMF comes in and says, okay, all right, be good, you give me some cash. But then when they say be good, they tell you to do that, this. Right? That's why this government is compelled to land a lot of VAT taxes, because IMF said in their conditionalities, okay, we'll give you cash, but you have to increase your revenue. And this is this. So that's why they say you're good. Okay? Although we say you're not good. These are social indicators which we look at from a broader point of view. Then these are other indicators called transparency, accountability, and most of these things are only talking, no action. Now this, I have given some details here, so you can read them. Unfortunately, I cannot. Now these are some of the data you have. Now as you can see, GDP growth is a dash. Then you have the Sri Lanka per capita situation. What has happened is Sri Lanka's per capita situation has risen very rapidly until the 14. Then after that it goes into a bit of a plateau. It's not there. Then this is where the GDP comes from, the main sectors. This is the current account deficit. As you can see here, it's fairly problematic in 2010, but then it has been systematically come down, and then it has gone up again in the 2017. Now, you might think, well, some of these figures, say 2.6 is okay. Well, it is not okay because it has changed the trend. No, it's not the absolute value, but you must look at which way things are moving as well. This is the imports. As you can see here, Sri Lanka's imports, and we have hit, that's a fuel, blue color. So that's a massive import, and then vehicles, those are the killers of the imports. That's why the government has now tried to. So these are exports. As you can see, we are standing on one foot. As you can see, only the textiles is running the show. Very bad. This is GDP per capita increase, but well, I think we need the figures beyond to talk about what happened. Then the fiscal cliff. Now this is, as you can see, all of a sudden GDP deficit has sunk in 2016. So despite whatever the things you can see, in 2008 to it was a better moment, and it's again change. These are revenue issue as I was talking to you about. Now, one of the problems of Sri Lanka's revenue is Sri Lanka's revenue by and large comes from indirect taxes. Indirect taxes is taxing every town you can have. So which is extremely bad because it's very bad for poor. On the other hand, the taxes should come from direct taxes. That's why this government is trying to make measures which are causing us to have a suffering, but technically it's the way forward. But it's a bad timing. So these are some of the other challenges we have. Guys are getting old. We are not producing enough children, and so as a result, we are having a situation of, by and large, we are on the older generation. Older generation means, as you hit a particular point, you become more in a consumption rather than a producer. That's it. Sorry about it. This is all we could manage. I can take a question or two if you want to. Okay, you can sleep. Don't worry. You can sleep in the class because I sleep behind the wheel. Okay, so that's the story. Bit of a rush, but I try to give it a different sense. Hope got something in the process. Right? So you don't have a question. Yep.
What's the main event was the
Say it again.
this is in the 2008 in the developed country. What is the main event?
2008, this recession, there was what we call financial crash. It happened in the US. Because the US policy, they reduced the interest rates and gave lending to people in a very free manner. This is to promote economic growth, because at that time they wanted to have economic growth in the US. But then what happened was, when you give people cash, and if the economy has not recovered, suddenly people find difficult to pay their debt. What happened? There was a further problem. When people got money, they mortgaged their properties. So people say, okay, the mortgage property is there. But for banks, having a mortgage property is a bloody liability. But what the banks did was that they put all the loans together and created a new thing called financial, I forget the word, okay? And then they sold to various other people like a stock. So there were so many people got into the same thing, thinking everything is, even you have a house, and then when the borrower default, the whole card pack collapsed. So as a result, there were a lot of banks going into bankruptcy, and to prevent that, the government had stepped in a big way. But that crash was a complete failure of the market system. Okay. All right. Okay. Good night.